Hello again, everybody. This is Stadium Master Dalton Perrine from chessuniversity.com, and we're doing another video here in the Tactics Time video series. In this video series, once again, I'm going to be working on solving different tactic trainer positions here on chess.com. With each of the positions, I'm going to first of all show you the tactic on the board. I'll give you the chance to pause the video so you can work on solving the problem yourself, and then I'll be explaining my thought process and showing the solution to the different puzzles we look at. So, without any more waiting, let's go ahead and solve some tactics. So this is between the 12 and 1500 rating once again. Let's go ahead and see what we get. Okay, so black has just made the move king to h8. It is white's move right now. Go ahead and pause. Go ahead and pause the video and see what you can come up with for white in this position here. Okay, so it's white's move here. Once again, I've repeated this a couple times in the other Tactics Time videos, but I'm always looking for those forcing moves once again. In this position, the only checks that I see, you can do queen over to h7 check, but I think black just takes back, and I don't see a follow-up there. Knight g6, though, looks pretty good, because it's going to force the king into h7, and that's going to walk into some discovered check ideas as soon as the knight moves. So knight g6 check, king h7. I want to move the knight away somewhere, not back to e7, really, because the king will just go back to h8. I'm thinking maybe knight into f8. That would be a double check on black because the knight would be hitting the king and the queen would also be hitting the king on h7. The knight on f8 would be hitting the king on h7. The king would have to go back to h8, and then I have queen into h7 checkmate because the knight on f8 is going to be protecting the queen when it goes into h7. So some people, when they look at this position at first, they might think, oh, let's just take the rook. But you also have to think here, if we take the rook, we actually just end up losing right away. If we take the rook, black is going to play bishop takes b2, and the attack is going to be turned on to us. So this is a situation where one small misstep can really cost you the game, but knight g6 check is the winning method. Knight f8 is a double check, and then queen now to h7 does work because the knight on f8 protects the queen here. Okay, let's move on to our next position. Okay, so in this position here, it is black to move. Go ahead and think about this position. Pause the video if you need to, and we'll talk about this position in a moment or so. Okay, so in this position here, it is black's move right now. The first thing, again, I'm looking for checks. Queen takes g2 is a check, but the bishop takes my queen, the rook takes back on g2, white plays king h3, and I think we start running out of attacking material at that point. So queen takes g2 doesn't really seem to work. Then I start looking for captures. Maybe bishop takes g2. That looks pretty strong because I'm opening up the second rank toward the opponent king. Yeah, bishop takes g2 is looking pretty strong here. If I take on g2, first of all, if the bishop takes back on g2, we have queen takes g2. So bishop takes, queen takes g2 will be mate once the bishop on f1 is gone. So white can't do that. Plus I'm threatening to move the bishop, maybe bishop takes f1 is my threat. Is there anything white can do against that? I guess if bishop takes g2, maybe bishop c4 is a strong move. Oh, I'm sorry, not bishop c4. Rook c4 is a strong move. I think at the very least we could play bishop takes g2, rook to c4, bishop takes f1 check, rook takes queen, rook takes c2 check, white moves, and then we take on d3, and I think we have a huge amount of material for the queen. But is there anything better? So I'm really leaning towards bishop takes g2, but I'm seeing if there's anything better. I was thinking about g5 for a moment. g5 in this position, double attacking the queen and the rook. But I think white can just play, like, queen or rook to g4, and I think that white is able to keep the pin. Or at the very least, after g5, queen takes h6, and then he probably has, like, a perpetual check between g5 and h5 there, or something like that. So I think it's bishop takes g2 here. And, okay, white plays rook c3. I think at this point we just go ahead and take the rook in this situation. The difference when the rook went to c4 in the other spot was that the queen was protecting the rook on c4. In this case, I think we just take the rook on c3. White will take on g2, and then maybe g5 goes back to working. Again, I'm always checking to see if there's anything better. Does taking on f1 work? Not that I see. I think we just take the rook on c3. Okay, and it says this is the solved position. Cool. Okay, so going back just a move or two, just to show that real quick. Bishop takes g2. I'm looking to open up the second rank. I guess white's playing rook c3, trying to pull my queen off the second rank, but I'm happy here. Even if white takes back on g2, I'm up the exchange. I'm up 3 pawns and the exchange. Definitely a winning position for black there for sure. Okay, let's go on and move to our next position. Okay, so white has just made the move king to g1. It is black's move in this position here. Go ahead and think about this position and see what you can come up with. Go ahead and pause the video here. Okay, so it's black's move in this position here. Once again, I'm repeating it a lot, but it really is so important with these tactic positions. I'm looking for forcing moves. I'm looking for checks, captures, and threats. There are 2 different queen checks, queen h2 and queen h1, but those both just lose the queen for no reason. But rook takes g2 is looking pretty strong here. If I take on g2, first of all, if white moves the king away, I have queen down to h1, and I think I get a checkmate. I guess the knight can block, but then I'll take the knight with mate. So rook takes g2, the king has to take. And then I can bring the other rook over to g8. Again, if the king goes to f1, I checkmate on h1 pretty soon. If he tries to block with the knight, like let's say rook takes g2, king takes rook g8, and then knight to g5, I guess I can just take with the rook on g5 and then still get the mate on h1 pretty soon. So I believe it's rook takes g2, rook to g8, the knight does block. Now, it's really important here that we don't take with the queen. If we take with the queen, white will just play rook g3 and block the check. Actually, this was a point I didn't mention when I was looking at this. Rook takes g5. White does have rook to g3 to block the check, but that queen actually needs to be protected by that rook. So if the rook goes to g3, I can just play queen takes e2. So rook takes g5, rook to g3. Let's take the rook first. If I take the queen first, I mean, obviously that's winning, but white could play bishop takes g5, I guess. So why not take the rook first and then the queen without letting white get the exchange? So take there first, then take on e2. We're up a queen versus a rook with a dominant position for black in this case. Okay, so that's it for a couple of tactic positions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. We had a couple of situations with sacrifices, opening up the king, attacking on the king side, a couple of positions, and mainly just trying to find the best forcing move in each position that's going to result in the best outcome. So that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys around in the next Tactics Time video, and I will talk with you guys later. All right, bye everybody.